Alrighty, well, as people are kind of getting settled in, I'm going to share. I was kind of asked to put a bow on all of this, and as you can kind of hear probably from the individuals we've had in the conference talking a little bit about their expertise, this bow is definitely not about the technology. It's about what the title of the conference is, right, which is Approaching AI in Our Region. So how do we approach it? How are we going to leverage our knowledge, our interests, our priorities in order to be able to work in the space that AI exists? And I think if you were here for last night and today, or just today, I think either way, what you're able to do is pick up a lot of information and realize the ways in which it's used in our society and in our region. And I heard the comment tool, and I think tool is a good example. And so it's a tool that will probably expedite and enhance the things we do. It's how does the user choose to use that tool? If you're trying to do good, it probably will help you do good in many ways. If you're trying to do damage, it probably will help you do damage in many ways. So there are so many examples of how I hear that that's being done. And so we're going to talk through a little bit. And interestingly, the title of my session is Reflections and Next Steps. And so I submitted my slides before we had all the sessions. So reflections and predetermined reflections are a little bit tricky. So I have some content on here I'm going to cruise through, but I'm probably definitely going to share some reflections and examples I'm given from our panelists, because there were so many amazing comments and ideas shared throughout the day's events. So one of the things I think we've learned through our discovery the last couple of days is that it matters because AI is not coming, it's here. It's here, it's impacting the way we live, the way we act, the way we connect with one another, transforming our industries, impacting education. One of the first disruptors that we continued to feel publicly was the way students were using it. I have a colleague who, she said she's been reading her kids' papers for years and helping edit them, and one in college, one in high school. So when the one in college first submitted the paper that was AI, supported, she said, "You didn't write this." And he said, "Well, how can you tell?" Right? Because she knew her son better than AI did. So you know that, but the instructor probably didn't necessarily know that. And then, lo and behold, the high schooler, about 6 months later, we saw the usage of ChatGPT, and we're in 25, so it would have been 23, I think, it was skyrocketing. And then June hit, and it peaked and slowed down. Well, guess what happened, right? Schools got out. So we saw who was using them. Students were using it a lot. But now we're seeing expanded far beyond students. Its impact on jobs and local economies, there's many ways where it's going to help a lot. It's going to help if I want to design a house, and I want to take an idea to an architect, I can now, right, come up with a program and come pretty close to what my 3-bedroom house and this and that looks like. But I can't go build that house. I still need to take it to an architect to get their stamp and their approval. And so one of the things we talked about with regulation earlier was, how might it be regulated? And I don't know if we can regulate usage, but we might be able to regulate responsibility and reliance. So, meaning if you used AI and you are responsible for this work and this outcome, you're going to have to sign off that you verified it, you checked the work, and that you did this. You don't get to just turn in the paper and say, "Oh, well, shucks, that thing didn't work in our project because AI did it." And so I think probably when we see regulation, it's going to be more on reliance and not usage, because I'm not seeing the world where we're going to be able to regulate people's using this. But I think the thing that when we talk about then is the need for ethical integration. And sometimes we talk about it as though we're in this isolated environment. And when we talk about, okay, well, we're going to control and we're going to regulate and we're going to talk about ethical usage, we also have to recognize we are in a competitive global economy. And the other guys may not be doing that. So if anything, how are we leveraging and using it to protect ourselves with that reality in place? So some of the key takeaways we learned from the summit, right, are some of the AI trends and innovations. I don't know about you, but I probably took down 15, 20 different apps that I want to look to explore. My hopes are, if you're a casual or a novice user, much like I am in many instances, that, you if anything, you got the courage and you said, okay, now I know how to go explore. And the examples that were used on the stage here with the panelists was exactly some of the first steps I took. I was like, okay, here's my problem statement, here's my prompt, here's who I am, here's what I work on, here's where my biggest challenges are, and here's where my strengths are. What tools should I be using in that environment? And it says, sounds like you need to use Copilot more, and here's how you should be using it. So I didn't have a clue what tool, but I allowed it to listen or take in my prompts and my understandings. From there, then I was like, well, how might I use it more? And then push. And so the term that got used a couple times throughout the weekend was prompt engineering. And that's going to be a critical thing. Whether you are using whatever the apps that were there, they're all going to be dependent upon prompts. You, the user, are going to have to do it. And it's like anything else we do in life. The more we do it, the more we exercise those muscles, the better we'll get at it. So don't worry about, wow, I got a really clunky answer that first time I used it. Say, wow, I got something. And then the thing is, the beauty of it is you build upon it. And like, well, that's not what I was looking for. I was thinking more along something like this. So I'll use an example my wife used at home. She's like, she's got some food restrictions. And she's like, well, these are my food restrictions. Give me some ideas of things that I could or should be cooking with. And, oh, by the way, I have these ingredients. And so like, here's like 8 recipes. And she's like, well, I don't like this, this, or this. And it's like, well, okay, well, here's 3 more. And it gives her the opportunity. She reverse engineers things that she's going to make that we wouldn't have even thought of absent that kind of idea generation. So if anything, use it as a thought partner. It will help you in those ways. So when we think about education, what's the role of AI in education? We talked a little bit about it throughout a couple of the panels and that. It is evident that it's going to be critical for us through K-12, through post-secondary, through lifelong learning, to prepare students for an AI-driven world. We're going to have to realize that AI literacy is a fundamental skill. It's not a nice-to-have, it's a need-to-have skill. And so that looks a lot different. And I think when we teach reading to a degree, if we want our students to be successful in future iterations of what jobs and careers, the 13 careers Heather say that they will have, and I don't disagree with her, they're going to have to learn that these are fundamental skills to cross those disciplines. We're also going to have partnerships, and this is true in anything we tackle, with K-12, colleges, universities, with our industries. Industry, what is it that you need to make sure that our workers are best prepared to step in and skill up? One of the things we talk about a lot in education is the half-life, right? So the half-life of stuff. And I think the half-life of knowledge or expertise is going to be diminished. So the idea that I became an expert in my field and I am now the utmost, foremost knowledge keeper of this is going to be supplanted. And there's going to be a really rude awakening for folks saying, oh my gosh, we talked in the panel, the sage on the stage. I was a facilitator of that knowledge. Adam was talking earlier about the power of apprenticeship and passing on knowledge. And there's a way we can use this as a tool to pass on that knowledge to say, okay, this experienced person's passing this on to this less experienced person. But sometimes that's great. Well, I've seen apprenticeship limited, so maybe even go bad, is you're passing on these antiquated skills. Well, let me show you this thing that you're not going to use, but this is what I know to use. And it often, essentially forces retirement. I'm becoming obsolete, so I'm going to step away. Well, that's a difficult person to be training in. This will narrow this has opportunity to narrow that skills gap by bringing some of that knowledge in and transferring it. We used the idea earlier of, what if my agent could talk to my grandkids? And so that knowledge transfer, that keeping it will be a powerful thing. Equitable and ethical and equitable access use. This is one that I think we really, really, really grapple with because we heard examples throughout. It's not a control group. We don't necessarily, the genie left the bottle, I think was a comment that was maybe contributed by Micah yesterday evening in reference today. It's out, and our ability to control for it and use it is difficult. And so I'm going to give you an example of one of those. I'm in a thread group with some friends, or a chat group with some friends, and one started a thread that said, my 14-year-old daughter has asked if she could make ChatGPT her friend. What do you guys think? And, one of the first questions was, well, why would she want to? To which the response was, because ChatGPT doesn't judge her. And you think about it, that's a 14-year-old girl saying, I don't want to be judged, and I don't think ChatGPT judges me. So that was powerful. But then the next contributor said, let me tell you a different story. My 16-year-old came home from high school the other day, and she was in a really bad mood because she had told one girl something, and that girl told another girl, and then the word spread. So she came home really disappointed, went to her room, but when she came to dinner, she was in a better mood. And the parent said, you seem to be in a better mood. You okay? And the daughter said, yeah, I am. I talked it out with ChatGPT. And the parent said, really? Well, tell me more. And she said, yeah, well, ChatGPT told me that I probably shouldn't tell one person I don't trust something who might tell somebody else. She said, it was kind of like that time I used to talk to the therapist, but I got to do it in my own bed under my covers where I felt comfortable having the conversation. This is how our teenagers are using these tools. So we're talking about regulations and barriers and guardrails and things we can put up. It's gone. And so, of course, the parent, said, well, right, that mom and dad are here, and we'd be happy to have these conversations with you. And you also know that if ChatGPT told you to jump off a bridge, right, that's probably not a good idea. And that's a scary thing, though, too, is like they're using it, they're dependent on it, they're not telling us that they're doing it. We thought social media was difficult. This is the level of engagement that it can be. Now I'm going to flip it to the side, and we hear about people with learning challenges and that. We have an instructor who was telling me a story. He was advising a student, and the student said, hey, I'm struggling with assignments in my class, like this other class. They're very complex. I'm not sure what to do with it. I have really bad ADHD, and it's just a really long assignment with a lot of details, and I don't know where to start. And so this instructor said, who's an advisor said, what about just putting it into ChatGPT and using the prompt and say, this is my assignment, what's expected of me? And it broke it down, and the individual was a lot less intimidated. But we don't realize that these are the things that when we talk about it increases accessibility, that's a way to increase accessibility. You take a complex problem and you say, okay, well, read it to me in 5th or 8th grade language. But the problem is, it's kind of like our wine glass, our red wine issue from the beginning of the day. When we used to do Google searches, Google would tell you, this answer is about 76% relevant. So take it as you will. ChatGPT says this is 100% right. This is what you asked for. I'm basically, I don't know what your problem is. You're the one with the problem. This is what a full glass of red wine looks like. No, you're not right. Do it again. Okay, well, let me give you a different one. And same result. So we have an ability to over-rely on this because of its confidence. It instills it in us. And so we're going to have to think about in our region, without the ability to set parameters, like how can we educate ourselves as users, as ethical users, the cautions, the things that if you're going to do it responsibly. Understand this, reward inquiry. Not just punish the usage in an unethical or inappropriate way. We have faculty at our place who do it really well. We have faculty at our place who are still struggling with processing and doing it that way. I had somebody say, if your only policy or approach to AI is in your student code of conduct, you've got a problem. Because that's not the only place it's used within your institution. And so we have to think about how are we leveraging this, and how are we rewarding inquiry and what we value in knowledge and thinking. So what's its role in workplace and economic development? We've had a lot of conversations about that today in the last couple of days. We're going to have to reskill and upskill at greater rates for what does it mean to be knowledgeable in your job? And we see this, in so many of our fields as it is. What does it mean to work in manufacturing? Sitting on the line, and whether you're feeding the dog and the dog's telling you not to touch the machines, or if what you're doing is you're stacking the boards as they come out of the machine, that's a lot different than now we're trying to hire people who are CNC operators. And the hard thing is it's hard to find them. Workforce, I was talking with a physician the other day who said, right now my challenge is that our provider expects me to have 1,800 to 2,000 patients as a general care provider. Said I did the math, that basically means I can spend about 40 minutes with each patient a year. And so that's at best a 40-minute physical. Heaven forbid it's somebody who has repeated issues. And so we talked in an earlier panel this morning about the ability to come with your own, not necessarily diagnosis, but let's just say understanding of your situation, where you're not as dependent on that healthcare provider who has all these pressures on themselves. So coming as an informed consumer, as an informed user, it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, WebMD, I'm gonna self-diagnose this, but it's, I do have this understanding, and it's, so we're going to be more powerful users of this. It's also going to allow our providers to be able to do this. So the top 5 jobs for growth in the Valley in the next 5 years, number 1, not surprisingly, healthcare practitioners. Healthcare professionals. And so we're looking at 2,400 healthcare professionals in the next 5 years. Number 2 is healthcare practitioners, and it's 600. So 3,000 of the next about 4,400 jobs in the next 5 years are in the healthcare industry. And we don't get to opt out of our need for healthcare. So what we know is that there's a shortage, there's a lot of demand on these professionals, and the ability we have to come with our own set of knowledge, our own set of understanding, makes us less reliant on them. I still want to depend on my healthcare provider when I go there. I go with more confidence that I might understand, or these symptoms maybe seem connected. What do you think about these things? But I still want him to make the diagnosis, and that's where we're going to see this kind of move, is where people can become maybe resident experts, but not super experts. We'll rely on that training, and maybe that will go away sometime. That was kind of the hypothesis that we were talking a bit up here on the stage on, and we don't know the time frame for it. But it's going to have a role in these industries. AI had a role in what we call in agriculture precision farming. And farmers' abilities to increase their yield per acre. And so, it costs more to do precision farming, but they yield more. And so it's even in some of our most rudimentary, and lumber, which is a big part of our region, you better believe it's in that industry, how they can create efficiencies and figure out how to as we said with corporations a bit ago, yield profits and do things that way. So I think it's important for us to understand it lives in our economy, it lives in our workplace. Some are going to be more disrupted than others. Talked a little bit about the word relevant. I think it's going to be incumbent upon us. How do we maintain relevance as an education provider? That's the challenge, I say, is we don't know what the jobs of tomorrow are, but how are we making sure that the students we train today for those jobs tomorrow are relevant? They're walking in with workplace skills. And I'll say that it was those fundamental things we talked about earlier. Those student learning outcomes is what we call them. That they're critical thinkers, that they're problem solvers, that they lead with inquiry, because those are transferable and they have a long-lasting life. So the power of regional collaboration. This is where the magic of this room and beyond comes in. And again, I have to say that I am very I don't know where Rep. Marsh, she may have slipped out. She may still be here, but there she is. I am optimistic. The reason I'm optimistic is because we have a lot of committed people in our region who are knowledgeable and want us to be a better place. And so when I think about what's in store for us with this disruption that AI is, I would be most concerned if we had our head in the sand. If we say, for some reason, it's not going to happen to me. Somebody else, I love the question about our mature users in that, and I think that that's a great thing. What happens if, our mature users are a grandparent that the grandkids used to call every Tuesday night, and now all of a sudden they don't call you as much because they're talking to AI, and that would be a terrible thing, right? So then that interdependency on one another and say, well, you know what, that's happening to me too. So I think that need to be able to double down on relationships could not be more critical. But as a region, we have to collaborate and think about things like, how are we going to drive adoption responsibly at scale? How are we going to create a region where people who think like-minded want to be here? And so talking to Aaron earlier at lunch, and he's what I call a boomerang. He was here, he left, and we were able to bring him back. And too many communities, we have a brain drain. We lose some of our top students. They go off to university, and then the sad reality that we see is they go to university, they start a successful professional career, they're ready maybe to start a family, and then when they're ready to start a family, they're like, wow, the cost of living in this city is really kind of expensive. It'd be nice to be able to move home where the cost of living is lower. We got built-in daycare with grandparents. Wouldn't that be awesome? But guess what's not there for them? A job or an industry or a community that welcomes their skill set. And I think that that is going to be something that we have to think about moving forward, as how are we creating a region where we embrace this thinking. This summit is a perfect example of that. It brings some of our leaders in this line of thinking together, and that's what my hope, selfishly, when I look at our college and our role in it, is I've got some subject matter experts at the college, but more than anything, I hope that we get to help contribute to the convening on these ideas so that these things aren't held in isolation or in pockets, that we're setting a spotlight on them and giving them the attention that they deserve and that we need. So community-driven AI strategies. Next steps for our region. So it's going to be important for us to develop some AI education initiatives. What are some framework around it? It's not going to be an exhaustive list, but it's going to be an approach to say, what are we most intentional about? When we're intentional about things like that, it allows us to pursue things like additional grants, additional philanthropy, to figure out what resources might we point at that. One of our fatal human flaws is we often want to be all things to all people, and that is a hard task to accomplish. But if we can get and say, for right now, where we are with this approach in our region, this is what we want it to be, this is what we want it to look like for a while, we can be really intentional at forming its place in our economy, forming its place in our education environment, so we can secure those resources, so we can engage the community in discussions, workshops, forums. Part of the goal of this, and I don't want to say ours loosely because I definitely am a contributor, I definitely wasn't a planner for this, a lot of great talented folks put this together for you. But part of the goal was not to come here and say, now I know everything I need to know. It was to start conversations, and I don't know about you, but I probably had 10, 12 great conversations with folks this last couple of days that I can't wait to continue to figure out where they go. How do we get those a little more mature and those ideas thinking a bit deeper? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a call to action for you, and I'm going to say, what will you do? When you leave here today, it's easy to say, wow, I went to that summit, and it was really powerful. Maybe I'll look up those, a couple of those apps or that people were referencing. Those look kind of cool, and that might be it. Maybe I will pay attention to where those workshops are, and maybe I'll go to one of those workshops. If you're thinking about doing something like that, maybe get a buddy here and say, accountability partner. This is like exercising those muscles. And so, the best thing we can do to hold ourselves accountable for something is say it out loud. Develop an accountability partner. So whatever you feel inspired to do after the last couple of days, hopefully it's something, make yourself accountable to it. So what will you do to grow and have a place in AI in your life or in our region? And then how can we support AI literacy, innovation, and inclusion? This is an example of innovation, but this is really more the societal stuff. You go to those workshops and forums that are talked about, they're going to be really isolated events to say, wow, here it is in that space. So it's kind of cafeteria style, take it or leave it. That's something I'm really interested in. That's something I'm not interested in. But the other thing is, with that, you know who the organizers are, and you may express interest and say, those are really neat topics, but what I really like to see is AI in this environment. And that's part of what I'm working on with our colleagues at the college is we're looking at AI from a kind of a three-pronged approach. We're saying, okay, what is the role of the college in supporting our teaching and learning environment? How do we make sure that our instructors have the resources they need so they can best prepare students for the next chapter? How are we making sure that students are understanding their roles and responsibilities in using a tool like this? So that's one, is the teaching and learning environment. The second one is in our operational experiences, right? We're a fast-growing college. We're really proud of that. We've got a lot of great things going on. Our people are fatigued. They can't keep up with the pace of change. So we want to look and say, how can we build efficiencies? What are some of those mundane things? How can we automate some of these things? So we're looking at how can AI support that work that we've referenced the last couple of days around taking the things you don't like away from you, and then people decide, is that found time that I get to go? I jokingly say golf. I wish I could golf more often. I don't get to. Or is that time that I'm going to spend working still, but I'm going to still work on the productive things that give me energy versus take it from me? And that's a personal answer that you answer with that. So the first one, again, is teaching and learning. Second one is the way we're doing it in operations. And the third one for us is the fun one for me is what is our role in the ongoing workforce and community education and awareness? And so while we may not be a champion in this space, maybe we will minimally be a convener and say, okay, how can we help convene within our presence in the Rogue Valley, in Ashland, in Medford, in Grants Pass, in White City, in Phoenix and Talent. So try to say where we already have an existence, and so that's a part of a role for us. So those are the three things that we're trying to look at to say that it's here. It's not going anywhere. So for our responsibility as an entity in our region, we're going to tackle it in that way. And so depending on what your roles and what your interests are, hopefully you can find a place for you too.
Okay, folks, we made it. This officially closes the Approaching AI Summit. We have now approached AI. We don't have to be intimidated anymore. Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library for the win. Now, in the words of Randy, I'm going to ask a friend to close us out. Using the personality of a gruff sea captain, please give me a clever and insightful 30-second closing to an AI summit hosted at a university.
Ahoy, crew of the AICs. We've navigated the turbulent waters of innovation and discovery. As we dock our ship, remember, the true treasure lies not in the algorithms, but in the boundless curiosity and courage to explore uncharted territories. Until we meet again on these digital waves, fair winds and following seas.
Thank you.